Now that you're feeling very comfortable with the term referential integrity and table relationships, it's time to talk about something that will help you when it comes to data input, and that's a subdata sheet. As soon as we create relationships between tables like we have here in our database, linking the album ID in the album table to the album ID field in the songs table, and also linking the performers table by the performer ID to the performer ID field in the songs table, we now have a relationship. We've enforced referential integrity so that the way we've set it up, if we were to remove an album, all of the songs with that related album ID would be removed as well. If we were to change information in the performer ID and performers table, we would see those changes in the related table under songs here. All the performer IDs would be updated. So with all of that in mind, now we're going to look at a little feature, the subdata sheet, which is going to help you when it comes to data input. Now, before we continue, you're going to need to open up the database called Music Library 5C. That's in your Lesson 5 folder of the exercise files. And once you've got that open, I want you to go over to the Performers table and double-click it here in the navigation pane. You'll see I've added some performers for you. Now, what's new about this, something you haven't recognized maybe, is the little plus signs down the left-hand side next to each record. This represents the subdata sheet, which is a datasheet view of the related table. So we know performers is related to the songs table through that performer ID. So if I click the plus sign here next to Boston, I'm going to see the subdata sheet. Now there are no songs in here yet, but I can use the subdata sheet to actually input new songs using this performer ID. Notice that there's no performer ID column. I don't need to put that in because it's related, and it will automatically be updated with this performer ID. I do need to put in the album ID though, and that I may not know off the top of my head. If I go over to the album table and double click it, you'll notice that all of the albums show up here with the album IDs, and here we go. We've got plus signs next to each one of these as well, representing the related table, which again is the songs table. So clicking the plus sign here next to Boston will display the song table in a subdata sheet. Again, I don't have any songs input yet, but I could start inputting them here. Notice also that the album ID column now doesn't show up here, but there is a performer ID column. So this is just one way to help us with our data input to see more than one table's worth of data at a time. We can input songs from the data sheet. We can input songs from the data sheet under the performers table here. And of course, if we go to the songs table and double click it, we can put in new songs here as well. So I'm just going to put one in here in the songs table. Song ID is 1 by default. I'm going to tab over to song title. I'm going to type in More Than a Feeling. The genre is rock. The year that this came out was 1976, which would make it the 70s. The performer ID, I know just from looking at the two tables, is 1. The album ID is 1. And when I hit tab, I'm on to a new record. Now I'm going to go back to the album tab up here. And now I don't see that updated field yet, or that updated record in the songs table until I refresh. When I click the refresh button, notice that that song now shows up in the subdata sheet. Same thing if I go up to performers here and refresh. You can see I've got that song ID in there as well. Of course, refresh all would just update all of the tables and their subdata sheets. So the subdata sheet is a great way to see more information than just what's the one table you're working in. You can always see related information in the related table, but you can also use the subdata sheet to input new data as well. Keep that in mind. Now, we're only going to see related information in a related table. What if we wanted to input data into all three tables at one time? In other words, have access to all of the fields in all of the tables in our database. Well, that's where a query might come in handy. In the next chapter, we're going to dive into the topic of queries in great detail.